What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. Tonight, Friday evening, December 15th, we got football on Saturday. We got three games going on tomorrow, the rest on Sunday, and the Monday night game between the Eagles and the Seahawks. What we're going to do in this video, we're going to hang out for the next maybe 20 to 30 minutes. I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm going to try and go quickly and get you guys the Week 15 preview and everything that you need to know before we get the first round of the fantasy playoffs underway. So there is a link in the description that gets you guys to the article that we're looking at here, and then I'll probably post it in the comments as well. Let's just hop right into it. Saturday games, we have the Minnesota Vikings at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals picked to win by 3.5, 40.5 implied in this one. I don't think there's any injury concerns or questions going into this one. They already ruled out Alexander Mattison. Justin Jefferson's playing. I'm not sure if he's 100%, but I think, the stakes right now, fantasy playoffs round one, you're playing Justin Jefferson if you have him. On the Viking side, I think Nick Mullins is an emergency QB2 option. We're not looking at him in QB1 leagues. So you're playing JJ, you're playing Hawkinson, and then the question is going to be, do you play Ty Chandler? We've seen him, play well a little bit this year. Now that he's the lead back all by himself, I do think he's a low-end RB2 play. He could find his way to, 15 touches or so, something like that. So I'm open to Ty Chandler. Let me know if you have questions there. I think he's going to be a top 25 back this week. Maybe the Vikings defense, they have been playing well. I think the Bengals offense has been playing well. I don't know if I'm too excited about starting the Vikings D. I'm going to leave Jordan Addison on the bench just with, going to Nick Mullins, JJ's back. A lot of questions here. I think it's going to be a low volume kind of game for Jordan Addison. Sure, he can make a big play or two, but I'm not trusting the floor. Kenny Nwangwu is the backup running back to Ty Chandler. We'll keep an eye on him. And then, of course, Josh Dobbs got benched here. So overall, not too excited about the Vikings. I think JJ and Hawkinson need to be in your lineups. And the Bengals, they're kind of average on defense. They do allow the most tight end points right now. So it could be a nice TJ Hawkinson day. And hey, we've seen Nick Mullins play well with George Kittle in some tight ends in the past. On the Bengals side, I think Jake Browning, man, he could be started as a quarterback one. I think he's a top 15 play. Again, we kind of trust him over these last two games. He's been playing really well. This game's in Cincinnati too. So Jake Browning, I'd rather play Jake Browning over Tua Tagovailoa. If you have questions like that, I think I'm leaning Browning. You're playing Joe Mixon. You're playing Jamar Chase, who hopefully gets, last week was a bad game from Jamar Chase. Hopefully he finds his way to, 5, 6, 7 catches and some big plays. T. Higgins can be a wide receiver 3 flex. He did have a couple big catches last week. Maybe that continues his momentum. And then if you need a desperation tight end play, Tanner Hudson could be of use. I'm open to starting this Bengals defense. Not super in love with it, but I do think the Bengals are going to win this game. Tyler Boyd on the bench, and then Chase Brown. Keep an eye on him. He's the guy that I want on my bench right now for the fantasy playoffs, just in case anything happens to Joe Mixon. But I think this one's coming up Bengals. I think they can continue their playoff hunt. Moving on to the Steelers and the Colts. Not super excited about this one. It's Minshew versus Trubisky. Colts picked to win by 1.5 at home here, 42.5 total implied in this game. Overall, the defenses are not the best. The Colts do allow the 30th most running back points here, and then they're kind of average against the other positions. So I do think we want to attack with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Otherwise, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, I'd rather play Deontay in a full PPR league. You're gonna play Najee and Jaylen Warren if you have them, I think, and then Pat Freiermuth's a low tight end play. Although, the Colts do allow 12 points per game to the tight end spot. That could be a nice, opportunity for Pat Freiermuth. I think Trubisky's just a QB2 for super flex leagues. I kind of like the Steelers offense in this one. I just think they're going to be able to run the ball and play their style of game. And obviously they have playmakers on defense here, but they do allow fantasy points here. They don't allow quarterback fantasy points. So I don't love the spot for Minshew, but average against running back, receiver, and tight end. I think you're starting Zach Moss if you have him, and you're starting Michael Pittman. He's been a wide receiver one pretty much all season. So I like Moss and Pittman. Minshew maybe as a QB2 for super flex leagues. Colts defense is startable, but probably not. I think I'd rather play the Steelers defense if I had to choose one of these teams. No Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs, Peterson, Trey Sermon. Leave these guys all on the bench. Not super excited about this game here, but I think the Steelers, man, one of these teams is making the playoffs. So we'll figure it out who. I think it's going to be the Steelers that prevail on the road, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts can pull it off. Moving on to the Broncos and the Lions. I'm actually excited about this one because the Broncos have been playing some really good football, and I think they are a playoff team in the AFC at the end of it. But anyway, the Lions, 4.5 point favorites, 48 total implied in this one. The Lions defense, super stout against the running back position, but man, they give up QB points, receiver points, and tight end points. So I do like the Russell Wilson passing game this weekend. So Wilson, I have him as a QB2, but I'm playing Russell Wilson over Tua Tagovailoa. I think Russell Wilson versus Jake Browning is an interesting conversation. I could go either way, but I do think Wilson's probably a fringe QB1. You can play Javonte Williams, even though I mentioned the Lions are the second best team against the running back, only about 17 points. So I think if you play Javonte Williams, you're going to have lowered expectations. Hope he falls in the end zone, but maybe expect a floor of 8 to 10 PPR points. You're playing Cortland Sutton if you got him. He's one of the best Bronco plays. And then Samaje Perine maybe is a deep RB2 in some deeper leagues. Maybe the Broncos defense. They've been one of the better defenses of late. Even though this one's in Detroit, I don't know if I want to play the Broncos defense, but I think they could be. The Lions have turned the ball over. They could be looking at some nice opportunities there. Jerry Jeudy's just not happening. Marvin Mims, Adam Troutman, Jaleel McLaughlin will leave these guys on the bench. But the Lions, I guess we'll have to look at the Broncos defensively here. And the Broncos are pretty good against wide receivers, but they're bad against running backs, tight ends, and they do allow quarterback points here. So I don't hate Jared Goff. I think he's more of a super flex QB2. You're playing Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. The Broncos still rank dead last against the running backs here. Even though they've been better in the last month or so, they're still ranking dead last. So you want to play Gibbs. You want to play Montgomery. You're playing St. Brown. And again, we know that's a tough matchup. And Brown has, he's kind of struggled over the last few games, especially last weekend. But I think they're going to try and get him going. And then you're starting Sam Laporta. We know the Broncos are not good against tight ends. So overall, I think you're starting the lines that you have. Jared Goff's really the only question in one QB leagues. Say no to that Lions defense. We'll leave Reynolds and Jameson Williams here. Jamion Williams, we'll leave him on the bench. But Lions have not looked good the past few weeks here. They need to win this game at home to stay well ahead in the NFC North and keep, fighting for that number 2 or number 1 seed potentially. So we'll see what happens here. I think the Broncos are going to give them a chance. They're going to give them a run. I bet the Broncos cover that 4.5. But that's the Saturday slate. Moving on to the Sunday early games, we're going to have to watch for the weather in some of these games here. So double check, NFLweather.com to see what's going on here. But the Bears at the Browns, -3 for the Browns, 38.5 implied in this one. On the Brown side, I think Joe Flacco is just a super flex option. I don't want to play him against the Bears defense. They've been playing really well lately. So in one QB leagues, I don't want to play Joe Flacco. I'd rather play Russ Wilson, Jake Browning, some of those other names we've talked about already. You can play Jerome Ford, but just keep in mind, despite the Bears ranking 25th against running backs here, they've been one of the better teams limiting their running back points here. So I like Jerome Ford as a low-end RB2. I don't love it. You're going to play Amari Cooper. I think he's the one receiver that I like here. And then David Njoku needs to be started as a tight end. Maybe Elijah Moore. If you have flex questions on Elijah Moore, he has been one of the favorite targets for Joe Flacco. The Browns defense is startable, but I'm kind of hesitant here. They're missing some starters on defense, and this Bears offense is starting to wake up and put up some fantasy points here. So I'm a little bit nervous about the Browns D. I'm not going to play Kareem Hunt or Cedric Tillman. The Bears side, I think it's pretty simple. You're playing Fields if you have him. You're playing DJ Moore if you have him. And Cole Kmet's been a top 10 tight end all season. Continue to play him despite the Browns' tough matchup here. And then Deonta Foreman. If there's going to be one running back that I want to play, it's Deonta Foreman in this one. He did lead the team in touches last weekend in snaps. And if anyone's going to fall into the end zone, it's going to be Foreman. Probably not the Bears defense, but maybe. Joe Flacco, he can't really run the ball. He's going to take sacks and maybe force some turnovers here. So even though I have probably not, if I'm starting a team here, I kind of want to start the Bears defense over the Browns. We're going to leave Mooney, Roschon, and Khalil Herbert on the bench. I think the Bears are going to cover the 3 in this one. I'm starting to get a little excited about Chicago's offense and their defense is playing well. Moving on to the Buccaneers and the Packers. Packers 3.5 home favorites here, 42.5 implied in this one. Aaron Jones is a true questionable decision here. I think he's going to play though. AJ Dillon's also in doubt. He broke his thumb Monday Night Football. He might try and play, though. He was able to practice today. We'll see if he can play with a cast or something and still hold on to the ball. Dontavian Wicks is a true questionable decision with a potentially high ankle sprain. And then Christian Watson, I'm assuming he's not going to play. He's listed as doubtful, but I think he's more out. So on the Packers side, they're playing the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is really bad allowing passing points here. So Tampa Bay ranks 27th against the quarterback, 30th against wide receiver, and 26th against tight end. So I think this is a game where you want to play Jordan Love. I'm playing Jordan Love over Tua. I'm playing Jordan Love over Browning and Russell Wilson. I think he's a top 10 play this weekend. They're going to bounce back from last Monday night. So you're playing Jordan Love. I think if Aaron Jones plays, you're going to play him as a low end RB2 play. Just, he's a kind of a different player at home. Jaden Reed's the receiver I want on this team. Continue to play him. They find ways to get him the ball in the running game, and he's been playing at a high level. Romeo Dobbs, I have listed twice. I don't know why, but Romeo Dobbs can be a wide receiver 3 flex, assuming Christian Watson will be out. And then that Packers defense is startable. They didn't play great against the Giants, but I think they can play better against Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield has been atrocious against the Packers in his last 2 games at Lambeau. He played there as a Ram, awful game, and he played there as a Brown and had a terrible game. So Dillon, Wicks, Tucker Kraft, Watson will leave these guys on the bench. On the Buccaneers side, Baker Mayfield's just a super flex option. You're playing Rachaad White, Mike Evans, and that's the end of the list for the Bucs. I don't know what's going on with Chris Godwin. He didn't really practice all week. He's going to be a true game time decision. And honestly, even if he plays, I don't know if we're starting Chris Godwin. He's been kind of frustrating this season. So if he does play, maybe I'd move him up to a low end wide receiver 3 flex. K. Dotton, not quite sure I trust him. And then Trey Palmer could get more use if no Godwin. So Battle of the Bays. I think the Packers take this one and continue their playoff push. Texans and Titans, not excited about this game. We'll be quick with this one. Titans -3, 37 implied in this one. The Texans are going to be missing CJ Stroud, Nico Collins. I don't think I want anything to do with the Texans this weekend. We're going to see Davis Mills start. Basically, if you need Mills in a super flex league, sure, I get it. Dalton Schultz is really the only passing weapon that I'm even thinking about. He's going to play. He's been practicing all week and he's cleared to go. So if you need tight end, maybe Dalton Schultz. If you need a running back, maybe Devin Singletary. I don't feel great about it. The Titans do have one of the better running defenses. And then the lead receiver is going to be Noah Brown, but he's had 2 zeros in the last 3 weeks here. So I do not trust Noah Brown. I don't trust the Texans this week with Davis Mills. I think it's going to be an ugly game, to say the least. And then as the Titans go, you're playing Derrick Henry. Like, he's set up to mash, and you're playing DeAndre Hopkins. Those are the must starts on this side. I think Will Levis is a super flex option. Chigozie Okonkwo, I don't hate as a tight end streamer. He's been good for about 9 fantasy points in PPR leagues the last couple of weeks. And then honestly, Tajay Spears has looked pretty good the last 2 games too. I think he's a low end RB2 play. This one's coming up all Titans for me. I'm open to starting the Titans defense this week. And then Treylon Burks I have as a bench play, but keep an eye on Treylon Burks. He's back and he's healthy and he's stretching the field. Titans should be able to take this one home. Jets and Dolphins. I want to note that the weather in this game is going to be ugly. They're calling for definite rain and winds in the 25 to 30 mile per hour range. So it's ugly. We're also watching the health of Tyreek Hill. We're also watching the health of Devon Achane. I think Achane's doubtful. They're listing him as questionable. He got a limited practice on Friday, so we'll see. But don't know what's going on with Tyreek. Don't know what's going on with Achane. I don't think Tua Tagovailoa is a must start in a 1 QB league. I think he's more of a super flex play this weekend. I do think Raheem Mostert's a must start. You're playing him for sure. Obviously, if no Achane, that's going to make it easier to get Mostert in the lineup. If no Devon Achane, maybe Jeff Wilson as a deep RB2 play, but probably not. And then if Achane plays, I don't know if I trust him. He's been kind of dinged up and getting hurt the last few weeks. So for me, Mostert's the only must play on the Dolphins side. If no Tyreek, you're going to play Waddle. But again, the rain, the weather, the Jets' #1 passing defense here, I'm a little concerned about the Dolphins matchup. So let me know if you have questions on the Dolphins side. I don't know if that was very clear. The Dolphins are still picked to win by 9.5. But as you can tell, low-scoring game implied here. On the Jets side, you can start Breece Hall. I have him listed as an RB1. That's more of a full PPR status. But again, with the weather and the inability to throw the ball in this one, I might lower him to an RB2. Zach Wilson's just a super flex option, a deep super flex option at that. Garrett Wilson, a wide receiver 3. Maybe Tyler Conklin, a deep tight end streamer option if you need it. Both defenses are startable, as I think this game's going to be kind of ugly, low-scoring. I'm nervous about this game. Jets at Dolphins. We'll see what happens. Excuse me. Excuse me. But Jets at Dolphins, I don't have a lot of good answers and vibes on this game, so let me know if you guys do have questions. Again, Jets defense is very good. Dolphins defense, it's worth a start just because we know the Jets offense isn't very good. Let's move on to the Chiefs and the Patriots. The Chiefs are picked to win by 8, 37 implied in this one in New England. I think you're starting Patrick Mahomes. You're starting Travis Kelce. Those guys are the most starts here. Rashee Rice, I think he's earned our trust as a wide receiver 3 flex. You should be getting him in your lineups. And then we did see that Isaiah Pacheco is not playing in this game here. So Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire both become low-end RB2 plays. CEH was able to get 8 fantasy points last week without a touchdown. I think that's kind of what you're looking at again. If you just need someone to get you 8 to 10 points as a floor, CEH is fine. If you have a little bit of risk built into your lineup, Jerick McKinnon could be, put out as an RB2 flex play. I'm starting the Chiefs defense with confidence. MBS and Tony, leave those guys alone. What do we do with the Patriots offense? I don't trust Bailey Zappi, maybe as a super flex QB2 if you needed him. But otherwise, this one's all about Ezekiel Elliott. I see another 20-plus touch game coming for Zeke in this one. Even though it's a tough matchup, like the Chiefs defense is good. They rank average or better in all the categories down here, but they do allow about 20 fantasy points to the running back. And hey, if the Patriots just use one running back the entire game like we saw last week, Zeke could easily put up another 20 fantasy points here. So I like Zeke. Hunter Henry maybe is a tight end, streamer option. I don't hate it. He's kind of hot with Bailey Zappi. And then the one guy that I'm kind of excited about returning is Demario Douglas as the wide receiver 1 for this team. Don't know if I want to throw him out there in my lineup with his first game back from concussion, but I do expect him to be the leading receiver in this game here. Don't start the Patriots defense. I know I put maybe, but probably not, even though I do think it's going to be Chiefs offense has been struggling. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game on either side here. And then we're going to leave Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster playing his old team, and then now Ramondre's been ruled out, Bailey Zappi down here. So interesting game. We'll see if the Patriots can ride some momentum and keep that offense moving the ball. New York Giants at the New Orleans Saints, -6 for New Orleans, 39 implied. Chris Olave, he didn't practice all week. I'm concerned here. He's got an ankle injury. I don't know what to do with him because I don't think he's going to play. When you don't practice all week, that makes me nervous. They're leaving him the opportunity to play on Sunday. He's a game time decision, so I'm not going to have an answer. Hopefully Sunday or Saturday night they let us know that Olave is expected to play, or they just rule him out. That would be nice to know what's going on. So questions on Olave. I think on the Saints side, you're playing Alvin Kamara. And Derek Carr's a super flex QB2 option if you need it. Taysom Hill practiced in full this week. So I think you're playing Taysom Hill at tight end if you have him. And then the guy that is expected back, and he said he's going to be back and he's off the injury report, it's Rashid Shaheed. So there's a couple things here with Shaheed. If Olave doesn't play, I think everyone's going to be looking at Rashid Shaheed as the leading receiver here. And I think he's a wide receiver 3 flex play. Even if Chris Olave plays, he's not 100% healthy. Rashid Shaheed could be nicely involved in this offense. So keep an eye on Rashid Shaheed. Pick him up if you see him on your waiver wire because, hey, he might be someone that we need for week 16 and 17. The Saints defense is startable. We'll leave Juwan Johnson on the bench. On the Giants side, I got Tommy DeVito in there as a QB2 for Superflex leagues, but even that feels a little risky. If you need it, I think he can be, a 10 to 12 to 15 point play at QB. But overall, I still don't trust it. He does look good running the ball, though. Saquon Barkley, you're playing him if you have him. And then Wan'Dale Robinson, a deep wide receiver 3 flex. Maybe start the Giants defense, but probably not. And then Darren Waller is expected to play. I'm not starting Darren Waller in leagues where I have him. I wouldn't want to play him in his first game back anyways. But maybe next week, if he looks good in week 15 and we see some more snap counts and some data and things like that, maybe Darren Waller enters our lineups down the stretch. And then we'll leave Jalen Hyatt on the bench. So Giants, not eliminated from the playoffs yet, and the Saints are still fighting for their lives. So some NFC playoff implications in that game somehow. Falcons and the Panthers. Falcons -3, 33.5 implied in this one. I'm just going to be very simple here. The only Panther that I'm comfortable playing is Chuba Hubbard in this game. I have him as a running back 1 just because I think he's going to get the ball 20 to 25 times. I should probably list him as an RB2, though. But Chuba is the only guy I want to play on the Carolina Panthers side. Adam Thielen, maybe, but that's like a desperation wide receiver 3 play. I do not trust this offense. The thing I do trust is for them to give Chuba Hubbard the ball. Probably not the Panthers defense. Mingo, Young, and Miles Sanders, I'm going to leave on the bench, but hey, they gave Miles Sanders some run last weekend. We'll see if that continues to pick up. The Falcons are very good against running backs and receivers, so I don't expect the Panthers offense to do much. So it's Chuba or bust. On the Falcons side, we know that the Panthers are really bad against the running back. They're top 5 against QB, receiver, and tight end, though. So you're playing Bijan Robinson. Desmond Ritter's a desperation super flex play. Drake London had the massive game last week, and I think I want to try and find a way to get him in as my wide receiver 3, but just note that it's not a great matchup. And then same for Kyle Pitts. He's been playing better, but it's by no means a great matchup. So to me, it's Bijan versus Chuba Hubbard in this game. Start the Falcons defense, and we'll see. We don't really care too much about this game. Sunday late games. I like the late slate this week. Commanders at the Rams. Rams 6.5 point home favorites. 50.5 implied in this one. And hey, Commanders coming off a bye. They ruled out Brian Robinson Jr. and they gave up a ton of points to the QB, the wide receiver, and the running back. So Stafford, light him up, smoke him if you got him. You're playing Matthew Stafford as a top 10 QB play. I'm playing Stafford probably over Jordan Love, over Tua, over Russ, over Browning. Stafford might be top 5 this week. I think he's a top 10 play. Great QB1 option for you this weekend. So Stafford's in your lineup. And with that being said, Kieran, Cooper Kupp, Nakua, play these guys. This is a dream matchup. First round of the fantasy playoffs. You want your Rams in your lineup. Maybe even start the Rams defense. We know the Commanders, Sam Howell gets sacked. He turns the ball over. Could lead to some nice things on the Rams defensive side. Higbee's going to play. I don't trust it. Demarcus Robinson's caught 2 touchdowns in a row. Tutu Atwell, not sure if he's going to play with a concussion. But overall, I trust the guys that we've talked about already. Commander side, I think you can play Sam Howell as a fringe QB1. I think he's right there in the mix with Jordan Love and Russell Wilson and those guys here. So I think he's a top 10, top 12 QB. You're playing Antonio Gibson if you got him. We've been patient with Gibson, and hey, Brian Robinson's missing his first game of the season. Gibson's going to probably get 12 to 15 touches in this game. And we know he's explosive. We know he's a pass catcher. I think full PPR. I'm putting Gibson in my lineup. McLaurin, you got to try and find a way to get him in your lineup. He hasn't been great this year, but he's still a wide receiver 3. Logan Thomas, slightly interested in him as a tight end. Rams are not good against tight end. They allow 14.5 points per game to the tight end position. And then just the nature of this game, 50.5 points implied. That means the Commanders are going to have to, play keep up and throw in the second half here. So Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 3 flex, and same with Jahan Dotson. In terms of how I'm feeling about the receivers here, I think McLaurin and Samuel are startable. Dotson's more of a desperation wide receiver 3 flex. And then say no to the Commanders defense. Keep an eye on Chris Rodriguez, man. If he looks good in this game and Brian Robinson's not healthy, maybe next week they continue to use C-Rod and Gibson. But Rams, man, they put up a fight against Baltimore. They couldn't pull it off. They're right in the NFC playoff race. Looking forward to that game. We'll be quick about this one. 49ers at the Cardinals. 49ers 12-point favorites, 47.5 implied. They did rule out Elijah Mitchell, and you know who you're starting on the 49ers. You're starting Brock Purdy, CMC, Debo, Ayuk, and then if you have Kittle, you're starting him. It's one of the easiest teams to navigate for fantasy. If you got him, you're playing him. They're 12-point favorites on the road here. We might see Jordan Mason get some run at some point in this game here. So I do think with Mitchell ruled out, Mason is worth babysitting over the weekend on your bench. On the Cardinals side, it's a tough matchup. They're coming off a bye, so they're fresh. It's at home. I like that part. So Kyler Murray, he's more of a QB2 for Superflex for me. I'll probably play Kyler Murray over Tua Tagovailoa. I'll probably play Kyler. I'll put Kyler right next to like the Russ Wilson, Jake Browning tier, where he's probably a top 12 to 15 QB. But again, it's a tough matchup here. James Conner's just a low-end RB2 play. I don't feel great about it. Trey McBride's the one play that I like on this team here, just because I think he's going to be very targeted, and he's going to lead the team in targets, receptions, and maybe even yards. I don't trust Marquise Brown coming back from a heel injury. He did have a full bye week to heal, but he missed some practice this weekend, and I think he's just out of my circle of trust right now. I'd rather, try somebody else that is healthy. So to me, he's a low-end wide receiver 3 flex play. Tough matchup. Say no to the Cardinals defense, and then we'll see about Michael Wilson coming back. Again, Brown and Wilson are both questionable in this one. They missed practice and got some limited days in on Friday. But Rondale Moore, Michael Carter, worth monitoring on the waiver wire bench here. But not a great game. Cardinals hosting the 49ers. I think the 49ers are on a mission here. Is this the game of the week? Cowboys at the Buffalo Bills. Bills 2-point favorites, 50.5 implied. You want everybody in this one. As far as the defenses go, I don't really care how good the defenses are. I want to play my fantasy players. You're playing Dak, you're playing Pollard, you're playing CD. I think Jake Ferguson's been so good to us the last month. I think he's kind of locked in as a tight end, top 10 tight end right now. And then Brandon Cooks is questionable with an illness. I think he's going to play. I got a lot of Brandon Cooks questions throughout the week. I want to lean towards getting him in here in a high point total matchup and a tough one on the road here. I think Cooks could be busy. The Cowboys defense is startable. Gallup and Dowdle will leave on the bench. As far as the Bills go, you're playing Josh Allen, James Cook, and Stephon Diggs. Dalton Kincaid's label is questionable in this one. I still think he's, now that Knox is back, he's not as strong of a tight end play. I might prefer to play. There's some other tight ends I might prefer to play over Dalton Kincaid. Like Taysom Hill, I might play Taysom Hill. I might play something like that. But he's a low-end tight end one option. Probably not the Bills defense. I'm not playing Gabe Davis. I just don't trust him. I don't want to zero on my team first week of the fantasy playoffs. Shakir, Dawson Knox will leave these guys here on the bench. So stick with the guys that you trust. Fun game here. Cowboys at the Bills. I think the Cowboys cover that 2 points. If they win the game, it could be, by a couple points here, but I'm going to take the Cowboys 2+2 in this one. And hey, even if they lose by 1, you're still covered here. So fun, exciting game. Bills need to keep winning to keep their playoff hopes alive. And here we go. Sunday Night Football. The Ravens at Jacksonville. Ravens 3.5-point favorites, 42.5 implied in this one. I don't really want to mess with the Ravens defense. They're number 1 against QB. They're top 10 against running backs and tight ends, and they are about average against receiver here. So it's a tough matchup for the Jags. I think Trevor Lawrence is not a QB1 this week. I think he's more of a QB2 for super flex leagues. You're playing Travis Etienne if you have him, and you're playing Evan Ingram. He's been money the last 2 games now that Christian Kirk's been out of the offense. So you're playing you're playing Etienne. And then Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones. I don't know what to do with these guys. They're both kind of low-end wide receiver 3 plays. Again, it's a tough matchup here going up against Baltimore. Let me know if you have questions on those two. If I'm playing one, it's probably Calvin Ridley, but Zay Jones, I know he's questionable going in this one. I think he's going to play. Slightly concerned about the Jags throwing the ball. Say no to the Jags defense. Parker Washington, Dearness Johnson leave on the bench. The Ravens are very simple. You're playing Lamar. You're playing Zay Flowers. I'm getting a lot of questions with Zay Flowers, and I'm like, no, you're playing Zay Flowers this week. He's been hot. He is the number 1 receiver on this team. Likely been playing good the last couple games here too. I think he's a tight end streamer option. I'd rather play Isaiah Likely over Dalton Kincaid. That's another option for you. Beckham making plays. He's a wide receiver 3 flex. I think Keaton Mitchell also a low-end RB2 flex play. So I want to get the Ravens in here. I don't trust this Jags defense. They are pretty they're terrible against QB, wide receiver, and tight end. I think the Ravens roll in this one. I think they're going to cover that 3.5, even though it's on the road. Start that Ravens defense. I'm going to leave Gus, Rashad, and Aguilar on the bench. You never know, but fantasy playoffs, I'm going to play the players that I trust. And Keaton Mitchell, he might be one of those guys. I think he's going to get the ball 10 to 12 times in this one and maybe burst a big play or 2. And then we have the nightcap here, Monday Night Football, Eagles at Seattle. Geno Smith is trending towards playing, so I'm going to assume, I'm recording this Friday night. I'm assuming Geno Smith's playing. If he's playing, he's a QB2 for Superflex, and he might even be a QB1 streamer, top 10 QB play. It's not too long ago we saw him light up the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, he missed last weekend, but this is the best matchup on paper here as the Eagles allow the most fantasy points to QB and wide receiver. So even if it's Drew Lock or Geno Smith, Drew Lock is a Superflex QB2. You're playing DK Metcalf. I think you're playing Tyler Lockett. I know he hasn't been great, but it's the best matchup that they're going to get the rest of the way. And then JSN, maybe he's a deep wide receiver 3 flex streamer if you need it. I think I'm nervous about Kenneth Walker. I'm still going to leave him in here as a running back 2. Saying no to the Seahawks defense. Probably not going to play Charbonnet. Let me know if you have Seahawks questions. I think they're going to have to throw the ball in this one. Doesn't matter if it's Lock or Smith. I want to get the Seahawks receivers in my lineups. And then the Eagles, they're very similar to the 49ers. You know who you're playing. You're playing everybody. Hurts, Swift, Brown, Devonta, Dallas Goedert. I want these guys in my lineups. And hopefully this is the game that kind of helps unlock the Eagles and gets them back on track as an elite offense. So say no. I'm probably going to say no to the Eagles defense. I don't think they're good. I think the Seahawks can put up some points in this one. And the Eagles are only 3-point favorites. Seattle's playing for their lives here on the line. So don't count them out. Fun game on Monday Night Football. But there it is. Week 15 starts ready to go for you guys. Let me know if you have questions in the comments. You guys can always reach out to me on the YouTube comments or Twitter, TikTok, the Discord, wherever. There's links in the description for that. But either way, thank you for your time. Good luck. I will see you guys Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. Central Time. We'll go live and get you guys the actives and any questions you guys have before the game starts. So enjoy it. We'll see you guys then. Peace.